Okay, Temt-ta. Abdur Kull Shaayaat Saamus Shil Temt-ta. Begin all things by first using the all. These are our weekly question and answers with Maku Nanya-Shaabu L, registered copyright trademark. At-sik Nation of Yamasee Moors, copyright trademark. Discussing current events with current solutions. At-sik Nation of Yamasee Moors, copyright trademark, is internationally recognized by the United Nations as an indigenous peoples organization. At-sik Nation of Yamasee Moors, copyright trademark, are also stakeholders of the United States and Canada, lien holders, claimants, and creditors of the Vatican, Holy See, Elizabeth II, a.k.a. Elizabeth Mary Windsor Mountbatten Battenberg, and all their agents, heirs, assigns, and principals, the state of Georgia, and the White House. Our official website is http://sites.google.com/sites/At-sik-Nation-Y. People are also encouraged to overstand what is on our other website, http://indigenous9.indigenous9.tripod.com. Facts are facts, truth is truth, and now is the only time you have. Chief Nanya-Shaabu L, copyright trademark, can be reached directly at 587-712-0639 or at atoxin19@gmail.com. Raahuaat, Hotep, Antuten. Greetings and peace to you all.
Temt-ta. Before we get started, I want to give gratitude and appreciation to the ancestors for us all being able to come here today. And before we start the address, I'm going to do some invocations as we feel it is necessary, especially with what's going on in Ferguson. So first thing I'm going to do is read from the Holy Tablets, Chapter 5, Tablet 4, verse 235. Look at Temt-ta, look at Libupa Rafuret, Shil Anu, Ilium El, Rabbi Kull Shaayaat, Nuk Akritu Bamul, Nuk Maluj Ilahu. Nuk Atlidu Pa Gafures, Shil Anu, Ilium El, Rabbi Kull Shaayaat, Nuk Akritu Bamul, Nuk Maluj Ilahu. Nuk Atlidu Pa Gafures, Shil Anu, Ilium El, Rabbi Kull Shaayaat, Nuk Akritu Bamul, Nuk Maluj Ilahu. Kawunfin, Muga, on. And the translation is, I seek forgiveness of Anu, Ilium El, my Rab, which means sustainer, for all the deeds I have committed. I repent to him. And these are words destined to save all the news bearers and all the mortals. This is invocation specifically for Cahokia, which is misnomer Ferguson, Missouri. And this is for all the protesters and all the people out there fighting for their indigenous rights, because they're eventually going to have to start calling themselves indigenous, because the black has no standing in law, as we all know. That's the first one for Ferguson. Now, the next one I'm going to read from is from the Holy Tablets. And this is Supplication 33 for those who have the Sacred Tablet of Amaray, which is also known as the Gold Book. And this is on page 212 is when the invocation starts. Za'ur haja naskun ya nitiru. Nuk ahnu Antuten liya sawug ba'id Lindsay Kull, Bafuchat Shil Pa Ayub, Yakul Gadushuk, Nibu, Makut, Henakfi, Wa Hafuzni Fi Hotep, Wa Yakul Barukatuk, Kawun Karni, Tawmid Diwasati, Atun Re, Amun Re, Nuk Enfinu Antuten, Hamudat Ya Za Esmuni, Ya Azuzi, Literu, Liku Jalulatu, Ninu Sakun Wa Lawuk, Dunyat Lin Nahu, Atun Re, Amun Re. Visit this dwelling, O guardians, for Cahokia, misnomer Ferguson, Missouri. I beseech you to drive far from the Cahokia, Ferguson, Missouri. From it all snares of the enemy. May your holy Nibu abide therein and guard Cahokia, Ferguson, Missouri. In peace, and may that blessings be with Cahokia, Ferguson, Missouri, always through Atun Re, Amun Re. I give you thanks, Almighty Guardians, for all your benefits, who live and reign world without end. Atun Re, Amun Re. Amun. And the next invocation that I'm going to do is going to be a this is what's called the quantum matrix, and this is the quantum matrix for changing. But before we do that, I'm going to do the energy shield first. This is an energy shield for Cahokia. Cahokia, known as Ferguson, St. Louis, Missouri. There were mounds there were connected with the ley lines, which also explains why the Buddhist monks are down there. And being that Missouri is known as the heart of America, and it's now found out through science that you have more synapses coming from your heart than from your brain. So this is why we're sending these invocations out there, and an acknowledgement to Young Merchant L, East St. Louis, Nina, and from off of Facebook, and the rest of the people down there. So when they listen to this, they can play this audio, and this will resonate with the mounds and with the energy. The energy is still there, and this will resonate with that and with the people down there. And this is the energy field for Cahokia, for the people down there in Ferguson, an energy shield against the enemy. For the approving, confirmation, favor within the agreeable holy appellation of the great Nitir Yusir, son of Geb and Nut, children of the majestic Amun Re, Nitir Yusir, and Nitir Aset, within the appellation of your son Hiru, and with the appellation of your son Hiru. I need you both to put around Cahokia and around all on this conference call, all in Ferguson, Missouri, all on Turtle Island, Atlanta, Mexham, Mulan, on top, around all of us in an impenetrable, impregnable, multi-layer, multi-phase, multi-spectral, multi-frequency domain, multi-dimensional, multi-continuum, multi-timeline shield around our physical bodies, our etheric bodies, our astral bodies, and all our other energy bodies, and all components that we consist of across all quantum, quarks, biaps, zeals, neutrinos, zero-point field, outside space and time, space-time continuums, timelines, and dimensions in this universe, across all bubbles in the omniverse, and across all planes of existence. Physical existence, existence of force, spiritual existence, mental existence, existence of truth, existence of reality, existence of the all. With your son Hiru's appellation, I call now Amun-Re, now. Netir Yusir of Septet and Netir Aset, with your son Hiru's appellation, I give you all gratitude and appreciation for these divine revelations and for giving Cahokia, Ferguson, Missouri, all of us on this conference call, all the listeners that will be listening on this conference call, this energy shield and protection against the enemy now. With Hiru's appellation, I call now Amun-Re, Kawunsin, 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 Muga, 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 on, on, on. And now the last invocation I'm going to do, this is called changing the quantum matrix in your home. We have this posted on Facebook for those that go to Nanya Ale on Facebook and go to my notes, and they can scroll down and find it. And this is, again, this is an invocation for Ferguson, which is a misnomer in the corporate name, but it's correctly called Cahokia. And for all the people down there, for the people listening on this conference call. Temt-ta, for the approving, confirmation, favor, with the agreeable holy appellation of the great Netir Yusir, son of Geb and Nut, children of the majestic Amun-Re. Netir-Yusir and Netir-Aset of Septet, with the appellation of your son Hiru. We need now you both to change the quantum matrix within the sealed-off land of Cahokia across all space-time continuums, all dimensions, all timelines, and all frequency domains in this universe, across all bubbles in the omniverse, and across all planes of existence, physical existence, existence of force, spiritual existence, mental existence, existence of truth, existence of reality, existence of the all, so that the enemy's jump gate technology will not function within Cahokia. The enemy's fractal jump gate technology will not function within Cahokia now. The enemy's transporter technology will not function within Cahokia now. The enemy's fractal transporter technology will not function within Cahokia now. The enemy's time travel technology will not function within Cahokia now. The enemy's fractal time travel technology will not function within Cahokia now. The enemy's dimensional travel technology will not function within Cahokia now. The enemy's fractal dimensional travel technology will not function within Cahokia now. The enemy's wormhole travel technology will not function within Cahokia now. The enemy's fractal wormhole travel technology will not function within Cahokia now. The enemy's implant technology will not function within Cahokia now. The enemy's walk-through-walls technology will not function within Cahokia now. The enemy's sleep ray technology will not function within Cahokia now. The enemy's remote viewing capability will not function within Cahokia now. The enemy's radionics technology will not function within Cahokia now. The enemy's psychotronics technology will not function within Cahokia now. The enemy's psionic technology will not function within Cahokia now. The enemy's depth signal technology will not function within Cahokia now. The enemy's disease signal technology will not function within Cahokia now. And all the technology that the enemy uses will not function within the sealed-off houses of all of us present on this conference call, all of us listening across the world, and all of us that will be listening to this conference call when it is uploaded. Now, Netir Yusir of Septet and Netir Aset, with your son Hiru's appellation, we give you gratitude and appreciation for these divine revelations and for giving Cahokia and us on this conference call and those listening in their homes, apartments, and land of knowledge for changing the quantum matrix within Cahokia and our houses and land now. With Hiru's appellation, we call now Amun-Re, Kawunsin, Kawunfin, Kawunfin, Luga, 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 on, on, on. So with that, before I start, I know there's some people that are online that might be having some questions, so I'd like to address their questions first before we get started. So does anybody have a question?
No, not yet.
So, okay, so I will start then. First, we want to address what they're putting out in the media. You know, this is going to be about Ferguson, so we know this is going to be a big one. One of the things that we have to address is they're now talking about black-on-black crime, saying you're not marching about black-on-black crime. But before we get to marching about black-on-black crime happening in the neighborhoods, let's address, we know what the word black means, and black has no standing in law. So if they're talking about black-on-black crime, what we're going to have to address is this. The Congressional Black Caucus is committing black-on-black crime because they're committing what? Fraud. Black law enforcement are committing black-on-black crime because they can't be citizens of the United States of America, and for that reason, they are now committing treason if they believe the Constitution is valid. That is black-on-black crime. The black politicians, black judges, black attorneys who have oaths to Elizabeth are committing black-on-black crime because they are upholding a slavery system and have sworn an oath to defend that system at all costs. That is black-on-black crime. Congress is committing black-on-black crime because they keep telling African Americans that they have constitutional rights, knowing that the Constitution has been suspended, and even if it was in play, the 13th Amendment with 27 specifically states no descendant of Africans can be a citizen. That is black or white on black crime. And for those that are in the U.S. Congress, it is black on black crime. And we know that the black law enforcement, the Congressional Black Caucus, black politicians, black judges, we know all of them are what? Listening to our weekly address. So before they start talking about black on black crime, whether it's happening on a subway where a brother's getting stabbed or the children are fighting on the train or out in the street, let's go, we have to start at the source. The black on black crime does not start first in the neighborhoods. The black on black crime is with the politicians, the bankers, the judges, all the ones that call themselves black or African American. That is your black on black crime, and that's worse than what happens in the ghettos. That's worse than what happens in the suburbs. Is everyone getting that? So when we talk about black on black crime, this is why I posed the question. All these people who are black representatives like Maxine Waters, we contacted her regarding the banking fraud. She never responded. They are committing treason. That is black on black crime. That's worse than the fights happening out in the streets or in the clubs. Much worse. That because those politicians, black judges, including the white ones too, but the black politicians and black judges, that is them participating in genocide because they are upholding a system that is committing genocide daily on Mennonites. So that's the first thing I wanted to bring up. So when they start talking, well, you're not marching for black on black crime, then those politicians need to start being honest and telling their constituents that they're actually servants for the Vatican. They're not saying that. That is fraud. That is treason. That is genocide. That's black on black crime. And since black has no standing in law, it's even triple worse, 3 times worse, because here's a black politician talking about black on black crime. Meanwhile, they're committing a crime because they know black has no standing in law. That's black on black crime. So for all the listeners out there, down there in Cahokia, misnomer Ferguson, you might want to bring this up to these black politicians, and especially when there's a yellow fringe around the 50-star flag or the flag of Missouri, the flag of Georgia, the flag of Illinois. What are they saying? The Constitution and the state constitution is suspended in the courtroom. That is black-on-black crime. But I'm upgrading that. That's genocide. That means all the black politicians, the black law enforcement, because they sworn an oath to the Constitution, which is a fraudulent oath, black-on-black crime. They are now guilty of what? Genocide and violating Section 33 of the General Orders 100. Because it says no invading force who's the victor, I'm paraphrasing, can take the subjects of their enemy and conscript them into the military. That's against international law. So every black person in black law enforcement, sheriff, bounty hunter, whatever, has an oath. All of their oaths are fraudulent. That's black-on-black crime. Just thought y'all might want to know that. Can't get enough of it.
Can you hear me? Can I be heard?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to express my concern or say to those who don't know that it's basically the Ku Klux Klan that's backing Wilson and raising all that money for him.
Oh, the black, oh, who's Wilson? For those,
the
those
police, the murderer.
Oh, okay, yes.
And that's factual. The KKK is raising money for him. The KKK helped raise money for Zimmerman also, but they're heavily involved in this.
And now here's where we get. I'm going to add to what you just said, sister. Here's another thing that hasn't been brought up. Is this? The thing that's brought up is this. Now, Jesse Jackson, is he a Democrat or a Republican?
I could care less what Jesse Jackson is.
I agree, but I totally agree.
The transcripts of the trial, the papers, it had to be kept undercover for 40 years. 40 years has passed since the assassination of Dr. King, and
yes.
Jesse Jackson was directly involved in it. I am in the midst of reading the 2,000-something of the pages that I downloaded, So Jesse Jackson needs to steer clear of anything that involves black people.
And I totally agree and accept that for value, honor, and consideration.
He calls himself a Democrat, okay?
Okay, and that's fine. And now Al Sharpton is what? A Democrat.
I don't know whether
Al Sharpton is a Democrat. Most of these black politicians.
And one other thing, I'm glad you said Al Sharpton, and I hope that I just said Jesse Jackson, because they're the only two reverends, and that's been in the movement that have no churches. So you could be a reverend, or I could be a reverend. But
anybody can be. All you need is 3 people, and you can start a church. And you don't have to go to the IRS to get a 501c3. It's in the IRS
code. They don't have
code.
churches. They've never had churches. The two of them have never had churches.
Agreed. But I'm just bringing this up for people to know that the church industry itself is a scam. There was a guy who was a pastor in Bishop T.D. Jakes' congregation for 25 years, and he wrote a book called The Sunday Morning Stick-Up. And in there, he said there's nowhere in the Bible, in the Old Testament, that it says that you have to give tithes to a church. And what happened was, what he did was he went and said, here, scared when the people down there in Ferguson said, we don't see you marching. And then he had the gall to put around a collection plate, especially after what he did. Oh, yeah, I'm still waiting for the video. Somebody has the video of him asking for $100 for his church, but passing around a collection plate, and somebody turned around and the people started booing him. We're waiting for that video. Whoever has it down in Ferguson, we want the video. Please put that up on the internet, because we're going to pump it out there. So yes, he did. He did do that. So now, getting back to your statement, all these black politicians, when you brought up the KKK is supporting, what's that guy's name, Wilson, who's the officer? Mm-hmm. Let's be for real. Any black person right now, today on Gregorian calendar is August 26th, correct? Just make sure I got or this is the 24th. What are we today, the 24th? Last week was the 23rd. Okay. Of the Gregorian calendar. And I'm going to get into that later. What have we found out now? We have found out that the KKK was created by the Democratic Party. So any African American, as of this date, I said it last week and I think the week before, any African American or person who wants to call themselves black or thinks they're American and part of Americana in that corporate sense, you are inadvertently working for the KKK by calling yourself a Democrat. So I just want to let people know this. So don't just only get mad at the KKK for supporting Wilson. They are following instructions from who? The Democratic Party. Who is the Democratic Party? That goes back to your Hillary Clinton and your Bill Clinton. So this is a game. So this is why we have these weekly addresses, because none of these guys out here are talking about that. They're all trying to protect the golden goose, which is the fiat, which doesn't exist.
Right.
So
well, I'm not a Democrat, so, right. But that's interesting.
Well, only way, yes.
Right. I'm glad, and I will pass that on.
Much appreciated. So now the next thing I want to bring up is the ice water challenge, and that came about after we talked about Nubians need to have some ice water thrown on them.
And that's completely out because that Lou Gehrig's disease generally strikes older white or white men, white males, South Asian males.
Correct.
At least 80%. So that all the Oprahs, the Michael Jordans, the Chris Brown, Steve Harvey, they're all, and all the others that are involved in, they're supporting something. They should be giving that money to, like, our resources so that we can build up our resources.
Okay. Now
I've got black groups.
I like that you said this, sister, because now this leads into the next thing.
Okay.
We got to talk about the entertainment industry. It's controlled by devils. We have to deal with that now. A lot of these artists and entertainers, they are on what? Contracts. So certain places they have to go. They have to get permission. They got to talk to their manager. They got to talk with the publicist. They got to talk with the record company. So it's not so simple as them wanting to go someplace. They got to get technically permission to go certain places. This is the problem. So when you see that they're not commenting on what's going on in Ferguson, that tells you they have already been, a memo has been put out, or they've been told in no uncertain terms through the agents contact the artists, the entertainers, the musicians. They say under no circumstances is any of y'all going to say anything. Anybody speak, that's it. They're not going to work in Hollywood. That's the type of deal that's on. So that's slavery. They're making millions of dollars, but the thing is they're in prison.
Exactly, and the majority of the promoters are the ones who run everything. They're Zionists. They're Jewish.
Exactly, they're Jewish. So now here you have it again. This ice water, because I saw Morris Chestnut did his. I'm calling him out. Sanaa Lathan did hers. I saw Oprah did hers. I'm like, this is genocide. And they're saying, we are targeting the black male. We are going to kill him. And we will use the police badge in order to do this. And then as soon as we raise up, Barack had nothing to say. Barack got 99 problems, and Ferguson ain't one.
No.
And so, that's why Eric Holder came down, because Eric realizes this is a powder keg. And now it's interesting. A white officer shot a dog. He got fired. Same white officer shot a black child, black boy, teenager. What does he get? He gets administrative leave.
Administrative leave, right.
So this confirms what I said on the weekly address. And I said, look, y'all, I'm telling you all, they have already been at war with you, but they cannot tell you that because your guard is going to be up. That's going to change the whole battlefield. The whole dynamic, how you interact with them is going to change. So they have
Right.
to keep it.
I'm sorry.
Yes?
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to ask, did you by chance get to watch live stream Mike Brown? The guy operating it, he reported police broke his equipment the other night, but he did interview a brother who is a retired sheriff. He's also worked for the Department of Justice. At this point in time, he has a case against DOJ, but he spelled it out like they don't go against that wall and instructions that they're given when they become police officers, that they are to go into the black neighborhoods and, harass, still do whatever, plant drugs, whatever on our young black men, and they are not to go into affluent white neighborhoods or either affluent black neighborhoods, because they have all the support of judges, of, attorneys. They have the money and what have you. And plus, they will bring lawsuits against police departments. So that is another way that they're decimating our people.
So now
Because all these folks that have been arrested, now they have records. Their fingerprints, and they've got mugshots.
Okay, got you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even okay, who's that sister? Are you from Ferguson?
I'm from Bridgewater.
Bridgewater, where?
Like I'm 20 minutes. I'm from Florida.
Okay.
I'm 20 minutes away from Sanford.
Okay, you were close to Trayvon. Okay, Seminoles that don't know they Seminoles calling in. I like that.
Where?
Michigan.
Okay, who's from Michigan?
I'm from Detroit, Michigan. Humble. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, but I moved to Florida.
Okay.
I'm originally from New York. I'm originally from New York. I moved to Florida.
Okay. So this is beautiful.
Humble.
Okay, so we got Florida, New York, Detroit. Is there anybody on the call here from Ferguson? Just so we're clear on this, or in St. Louis, Missouri, or near Missouri. Anybody on the call that's from there or near there?
Indianapolis, Indiana.
Okay, how far are you from Missouri?
Approximately, I'd say driving time would be like 5 hours.
Okay. And Ferguson was a result of the weekly addresses that we've been doing. All these so-called black leaders are not going to tell you guys this information because they're holding up a slave system very similar to the Matrix. They're so dependent on it, they will fight to protect it. And this is where we're at. And the point is, and my case in point is, Talib Kweli, I saw what he did on CNN with Don Lemon when he was busting him up. So this is the point, that if they're saying we want to solve this, the first key word, and the words are what they are using to trap, create situations, etc. You've got to use the word genocide. Civil rights is out the window. Jesse's not going to tell you this. Al is not going to tell you this. Malik Shabazz is not going to tell you this. Farrakhan is not going to tell you this. The Nuwabians are not going to tell you this. Great Seal is not going to tell you this. MSTA is not going to tell you this. Swift Angel number 1, Ely Hufus Bay is not going to tell you this. The Constitution, etc. The Constitution is suspended. It is defunct. The Supreme Court ruled the case. It can be the Constitution in a courtroom is a vessel. The Constitution is suspended in the room. That's why they show you the flag with the yellow fringes, bright yellow fringes around it, meaning when you step into the room, the Constitution is suspended. This means the sheriffs are committing treason. This means the judge is committing treason. The clerk, the women who work in the clerk's office, the bailiffs, all of them are committing treason because they're telling the public it's called bait and switch. People know about you go to a car lot to buy a car, they advertise it one way, then they turn around and flip on you and then they tell you that, oh, well, we don't have that car, but you can buy this one and try and bump you up. It's bait and switch. So the Constitution, that's why even on the basketball uniforms, the college uniforms, the NFL, MLB, everywhere you see a flag that has a border on it, they're telling you the Constitution is suspended. You are under martial law and have been since 33. This is nothing new. These guys are not going to tell you because they are caught in a cocoon of fear. So I'm telling you all, and you all can tell the people down in Ferguson as well as those, because I'm going to give you them some, for the brothers that have been locked up, for those that have been arrested, I'm going to give them some techniques of what they can say in court and jack the whole court system up down there. All right? Is everybody listening? Okay. Okay, so I just want to bring up, because I'm just trying to stay on pace here. I'm not ignoring anybody. We just got a lot of information we got to cover here. So now we have confirmation that Cahokia Territory, that's an indigenous name, but the corporate misnomer is called Ferguson, Missouri, is listening to our weekly addresses, and so is Florida, so is New York, so is Detroit, Michigan, right? They chased the agents, and I'm just bringing people who have been following up who might out of the North America. They chased the agents, Al Sharpton, FBI, and Jesse Jackson, U.S. government agent, out of Ferguson. They took off because their spells and Jedi mind tricks won't work on the younger generation. Right. So we've already did the gold book invocation. The Cahokia mounds and the mounds that are close by, the energy there, even if the mounds are gone, the energy is still there. As long as you all are touching the ground, you will still be connected to the energy. So you don't have to worry about that. The energy portals are there, and the proof of that is the Buddhist monks from Tibet are in Ferguson. That tells you that the energy grids and the energy sources are still there. So we've done all that. So the next thing I want to deal with is the definition of money, because this is the source of the problem, because ultimately it comes back to energy. So they're using our own energy against ourselves. So according to Black's Law Dictionary, first edition, money, a general indefinite term for the measure and representative of value. Currency, the circulating medium, cash. Money, quote unquote, is a generic term and embraces every description of coin or banknote recognized by common consent as a representative of value in affecting exchanges of property or payment of debt. This is Fifth Humphreys at 140. Money is used in a specific and also in a general and more comprehensive sense. In its specific sense, it means what is coined or stamped by public authority and has its determinative value fixed by government. In its more comprehensive and general sense, it means wealth, the representative of commodities, check the word commodities of all kinds, of lands, and of everything that can be transferred in commerce. This is 31 text 10, the number 10. In its strict technical sense, money, quote unquote, means coined metal, usually gold or silver, upon which the government stamp has been impressed to indicate its value. In its more popular sense, quote unquote, money means any currency, tokens, banknotes, or other circulated medium in general use as the representative of value. The term money is not of more extensive signification than money and means only cash and not things in action. This is 14 John 1 and then 1 John chapter 2:31. That's the definition of money. So as you can tell, there's no definition of it. You could write $5 on a piece of paper, and that's considered money according to the definition of Black. Now, what is fiat? Fiat is in English practice a short order or warrant of a judge or magistrate directing some act to be done, an authority issuing from some competent source for the doing of some legal act. One of the proceedings in the English banquet practice being a power signed by the Lord Chancellor addressed to the Court of Bankruptcy authorizing the petitioning creditor to prosecute his complaint before it. 2 Stephen Com 199. By the statute 12 and 13 bit C 116, fiats were abolished. And here's a legal maxim.
Okay.
Fiat justitia, ruat coelum. Let right be done, though the heavens should fall. And that's what we do when we do these weekly addresses. So what I'm going to continue on is the next topic is the Royal Order of Jesters. Now, what was noted with what happened with Mike Brown is that where he was shot, none of his vital organs were shot. When they're trained, they're generally trained to kill. They aim for vital organs. They didn't aim for his vital organs. So that sounds like with the Trayvon Martin, this was body parts. And what's his name? Zimmerman was a scout. And then would find the body and direct the police. The police would do the killing, take it to the coroner, they get the organs harvested, and they split the money. The Jews are big time in organ transplant and the organ donor. It's bigger than drugs. They're doing it out of a major hospital in New York. What is that? The Sinai, I think, is the hospital out there. And it's a known fact they're taking organs out the hospital. They don't hide it.
Right.
Then in Israel, the state of Israel, they admitted we are kidnapping Ethiopian children and taking their organs for black market organs. So
right.
they're saying this, that's genocide. So again, this is worldwide. Now here's what's interesting. They say we are the minority, quote unquote. They say that we're animals. Why are you taking our organs for? Because it's a known fact. Now this is, I'm quoting Umar Johnson from Living Color, the number 3, when he said they know that black organs, quote unquote, are the best organs for transplant. So we cannot be a minority and we can't be animals. You ain't gonna take no heart from no dog and put it in your chest. It's not gonna be compatible. Your body's gonna reject it. So
and as long as you can keep us separated, minorities or people of color are 2/3 of the world's population. Only 1/3 is Caucasian.
our number's higher than that. Higher than 2/3. 5'8". 5'8".
5'8" now, okay.
5'8". Remember, you got to take things with a grain of salt. When they give you statistics, you got to look at it because that's why they like census, because they want to keep track of what's going on in terms of who is going to be, what the numbers are, what the potential demographics will be, how they're going to change, how they're going to increase, etc. So they're going to fudge those numbers because if it's found out, and it's a fact that they are the minority, then it changes everything. So that means when stuff happens to us, the minority is lashing, which is the Caucasian race, is lashing out at us because they're trying to beat Mother Nature. And Mother Nature's like, you're losing anyway. You had a good 6,000-year run, and it's time for you to join the rest of the species on the planet that become extinct.
Yeah, right. Right.
Okay? Yes, go on, sister.
Yeah, I watched the Native American video earlier this morning, and this chief spoke, about Obama and about they're a part of, we're all brothers and sisters with the Native Americans as well. So I, understand exactly what you're saying.
Well, we are the original Native American. That's the next thing that has to come out.
Right.
And we have to say that. That's why you have to drop that moniker, black. It's not serving any purpose other than the only purpose it's serving is it's a code word for a programming which allows them to attack. When you say you are indigenous, what is, for example, sister, what did your mother or grandmother or father say your tribal affiliation was?
Mine, I believe, was, I don't know whether it was Choctaw or what, in South Carolina. Middle South Carolina.
Okay.
That's where my Indian heritage comes from.
Okay.
My African heritage comes from Liberia.
So, here's the thing. Yes, go on, sister.
Oh, that's on my father's side, and the Indian is on my mother's side.
Okay. Now, you see, when you claim you're indigenous, you can claim everything that makes up you who you are. So when you start coming out and saying, I am Choctaw, right? That means you have claims to the land here. When you say that, the black moniker drops because black has no standing in law. That's a game. You see the game. But they're not going to tell you that. So when you say that, when you point out, and it's pointed out that black has no standing in law, guess what happens? This means that you have and are entitled to no rights, and you deserve mistreatment, except for accounting. When you're in the black, that's a good thing, but that's for accounting. In law, you have no standing. When you start saying you are Choctaw, and if you're not Choctaw, I said, well, the first woman on the planet was a black woman, and she had two daughters. One went to Asia, one went west over here, and since everybody on the planet knows the first woman on the planet is what you all would call black, I'm a descendant of her. That automatically makes me indigenous.
That's right. Right.
So the people down in Ferguson, whatever their family lineage is, because I know it's a mix, they should start claiming that or start chanting, we are indigenous. Don't shoot. We are indigenous. Don't shoot. We are indigenous. Don't shoot. Now what happens is when they go into the problems, it's trafficking in human cargo because of the birth certificate and the registration.
Mm-hmm.
That is a crime against humanity. That automatically makes Eric Holder a war criminal, Jesse Jackson a war criminal, Al Sharpton a war criminal, the NAACP an accessory. It makes, who else? Congressional Black Caucus a war criminal, makes all the judges, the KKK, they're already war criminals anyway. That's why they don't talk about international law. That's why Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton are put there to keep people from going international. Because the first thing they're going to say, okay, what's your citizenship? I'm an American. Well, we can't help you because you're an American, and as we all know, the U.S. is a federal corporation. The USA is a religious corporation. And what does that mean automatically? That automatically means you are a slave of that corporation, and you have not disputed it, refuted it, counterclaimed it, or rebutted it. So you are in agreement with it. You can't come to the International Criminal Court. You can't come to the United Nations.
Right.
Is everybody getting this?
I'm definitely getting it.
I got a question.
Yes.
What is the difference between indigenous and what is that the same as Native American? I mean, can you explain the difference between the two, or are they both the same?
Okay. The common misperception is the Native American that what Hollywood puts out, Redskin. Now, if you go to, I think, the 7th address, I think I made mention of the book, not the book, but the report by Professor Raffinet. He wrote an article that was April 9th, 1824, Saturday night evening post for the Philadelphia Examiner. And in there, he talks about the fact that the original peoples of the Americas are not red. He said there was not a red man, there never was a red man. They were either brown, and this is his words, brown, what do you say, brown, black, yellow, even white, Negroes, but never a red man, and it never existed. So when you say
that's right, it's the Lakota Sioux chief that I was watching earlier this morning, he said that.
Because this is the dirty truth that's coming out on the whole planet. everybody says the first woman on the planet it was a black woman, so therefore where did all the other colors come from? They must have came from her. So why is it now nobody wants to talk about it? The Pope is bowing to a black Madonna and baby Jesus, but you have these black churches in America that are worshiping a white Jesus, and I'm going to give an acknowledgement to the brother who got that Kill the White Jesus challenge. I thumbs up it and I endorse that because that image is burned in Nubians' heads. And then you have white people who will come and say, we know Jesus never looked like that, especially in the Middle East, too hot. There's no way he looked like that. So the thing is, the acknowledgement is we were here first millions of years. They're finding Egyptian relics that they figure are only in Egypt. They're finding them in Missouri, Mississippi. They're finding them in Illinois. All these sealers.
Right.
So the thing is, you can't, when you start realizing these agents and these house Negroes like Jesse and Al, NAACP, and the rest of these guys are not going to turn around and address this. It's the responsibility of the people to say, look, we can claim indigenous because that means I can be the Egyptian, I can be the Assyrian, I can be the Cushite, I can be the Lakota, I can be the Benin, I can be all of that because all of your DNAs come from us. So this is the time now. And I don't care who doesn't like it. You can't be, I ain't walking on no eggshells for nobody. Because the point of the matter here is this is what was deprived of us, majority of us, going through the hell, as they call Shil school system. Then when you bring it up, they get mad at you. Well, how come we're not getting treated the same way? So the thing is, Sa, do you have that recording queued up of the white woman saying that white supremacy, or pardon me, she said racism is a mental illness?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Right here.
Oh,
so go ahead.
Play it from my phone.
Play
that in here.
So
I have the transcript written out.
Okay, go ahead and read it.
Okay. She said, brown-eyed people are the ones who originated or who founded every major religion on this earth. No white people have ever founded any major religion. Now you need to realize the contributions that have been made to society, to civilization, by brown-eyed people, by people of color. I'm talking about people of color here, folks. And most of us are not aware of those things because we live in a racist society and because we are educated by a racist school system that only teaches us about white contributions. And that's a fact. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. If we would start telling the truth in school, we would not have racism. We could cure racism in this country. Somebody said, I heard somebody in the green room say, racism is inbred. No, it is not. Racism is not part of the human condition. Racism is a learned response. You have to be taught to be a racist. You are not born racist. You are born into a racist society. And like anything else, if you can learn it, you can unlearn it. But people like this choose not to unlearn it because they are afraid they will lose power if they share it with other people. They are afraid of sharing power. That's what it's all about. That's the reason men won't share power with women, because they are afraid they will lose power. People, if we would share power, we would empower many people so that we would all be more powerful. What we're dealing with here is mental illness. Racism is mental illness. Racism was defined by President's Joint Council on Mental Health in Children in 1959 as being the #1 mental health problem among children in the United States. And they didn't say among black children. They said among children. Right. That is, that if you judge other people by the color of their skin, by the amount of a chemical in their skin, you have a mental problem. You are not dealing with reality.
So that's the end?
Yes.
Okay, so going back to the sisters, so that means when these cops kill us, they're suffering under mental illness.
Yeah.
So we're dealing, hold on, that means we are dealing with psychopaths. We are dealing with schizophrenic people.
That's why they show compassion to other people, all the white people they kill, because they know that they all crazy and sick.
Well, the one who pushed, that cop who pushed Don Lemon the other day, he is, someone found a video clip of a speech that he gave where he's been fired. He's been fired and he's been ordered to get psychiatric treatment. He said that he, I believe in the Lord, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, but I'm a killer. I'm a killer. I mean, he stood and he gave this speech, I am a killer. I was in the military, and anybody who gets in front of me, I'm going to kill them. I've killed a lot, and I'm going to kill a lot. So he's but most of them, the ones who have the mental illness, they're full of hatred, and they're mental. They're mental towards us, and they're mental towards themselves, and they want to keep us separated. They don't want us to be involved with China or whatever. China knows what's going on.
Yes, because we've communicated with China. We've contacted them. Our websites are all doing the interviews that we did on Blog Talk. A lot of those interviews ended up in Malaysia, South Korea, Japan. So the whole Eastern Asian is listening to our weekly addresses.
Right. And brother, what weekly address is this? I just happened to call the
This
phone
will be
number.
16. This will be 16.
16.
Not 16 weeks.
16 weeks. And,
yep.
And who is the host of this?
You're speaking to him.
Oh, and
I am Chief Nanya-Shaabu of the At-sik Nation of Yamasee Moors. You probably missed the intro. We currently have a lien on the White House, lien on the government of Canada. I have an active claim against the fraud queen of England, known as Elizabeth II, who's actually German and not British. Her whole family were Nazis.
Right.
And the biggest issue that we have found, plus we exported to U.S., Canada, and Mexico corporations to the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And this is done through the U.S. Post Office Form 7525B. So all these corporations from Florida up to Alaska, from Vancouver, the misnomer Canada, to Toronto, from the Northwest Territories down to Mexico, are operating on indigenous land without permission and consent, and I don't give them consent to operate their corporations here. They have to take that and they can float it. I want to see them float the Empire State Building in the Atlantic Ocean. I need to see that.
Right.
And this is the problem now. When I hear other groups talking about freeing their people, and I'm saying, okay, why aren't you talking about the fact there's already a commercial lien on the White House? Why aren't you talking about the fact that all these corporations are operating fraudulently, that they're on indigenous land, because these guys are worshiping the fiat, called the Federal Reserve note or the Canadian note or Mexican peso, English pound, whatever. So this is why these guys are...
I've been trying to share the little bit that I know, and I've been jumped on about it. Like, I've been getting private inboxes saying, shut up, don't tell people this, don't advertise that on Facebook because the FBI is watching you, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, how am I supposed to tell people if I don't tell them?
Because those people who are telling you not to do that, sister, they are scared. They are in a cocoon of fear, and I will even upgrade it. Dr. Cress-Welsing said that racism is white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
And she stated that any black person, quote unquote, who does not want to talk about racism, or pardon me, doesn't want to talk about white supremacy, hates black people, whether they're white or black.
Mm-hmm.
So even if they sound like they're conscious on Facebook, they're not really interested in freedom because, again, now it goes into the unknown. Well, what's going to happen?
Right.
Well, how are we going to survive? How's this going to work? So now they get scared. So they're like, no, don't say that. FBI's watching. I spoke to the FBI. I have a video recording of us talking to the FBI. The FBI ain't saying nothing because the FBI's got enough sense to know that they're operating contrary to the Constitution, because public law 89-719 stated that the United States was bankrupt on June 5th, 1933. It exists in name only. These guys are wearing costumes.
Yeah, whereas the United States is a corporation.
Correct. But again, and then here's the next thing. Alan West, for all the people on this call from Florida, he went off Fox News and said, well, the president is just the CEO of this corporation called the United States of America. Now, the United States of America is a religious corporation, which is underneath the corporation soul, managed by the Queen and controlled by the Vatican. So Alan West admitted to treason, and he said he was in the military for 20 years. I said, well, first of all, your oath when you got in the military was fraudulent. Then you said you wanted to demonstrate your leadership, and you called out the president for being a CEO, which means you're aiding and abetting the enemy. So therefore, you are a participant in genocide. See how fast everything just flipped?
Right, right.
So for that sister who was saying that she was trying to get in private inboxes and people telling her not to do that, cut those guys off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cut them off, unfriend them off of Facebook, and that's the end of it. Because the fact still remains, we got a brother, Young Merchant Alabama, we'll give him an acknowledgement at East St. Louis. Those brothers down there, I give them an acknowledgement, and I was like, hey, just to let them know, yeah, we thumbs up, appreciate all the posting and the forwarding and everything that they're doing. And he went and did a video and said, the United States, Canada, Mexico have been exported to the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. That is a program. See, they're using words as programs / spells. So when you see these situations occur with the brothers getting shot, first thing's got to come out your mouth, genocide.
Mm-hmm.
Don't talk about constitutional rights. Don't talk about any of that. Because, like I said, I already said what's going to happen. The family, if Trump filed a civil rights lawsuit, that's going to go probably as far as the appeals court, and then the United States Supreme Court is going to kick it out on the grounds that no, there's no constitutional civil rights, so it's not a civil rights matter. Then they might have to tell people, okay, the Constitution has been voided, and the judges have the right to void out the Constitution. When they can void out the Constitution, they can void out the amendments to the Constitution. So this is why I said there are some quote-unquote rulers who know this, but the majority are still following, it's the Constitution, it's the Constitution. I said, well, according to the Declaration of Independence, if the government becomes, not usurious, but the government becomes oppressive, you have a right to overthrow that government and establish new government. They ain't doing it because they got Social Security numbers. They got driver's licenses. They're operating on contracts in commerce. Yes, sister.
Chief.
Yes.
Let me ask you this: have you heard that the Pope is supposed to wrote up some kind of law or document or whatever, I don't know what it's called, to stop people from getting their nationality within 2 years? Like the window in the door is going to close in 2 years. So if you haven't got your nationality, that's the end of it. Have you heard that?
Yeah, no, could you repeat that question again, please?
I hear that the Pope came up with some kind of, I don't know, document or law or something or whatever, where you can't get your nationality after 2 years. Like the window is going to close in 2 years. Like all who don't apply for it in the next 2 years don't get it.
Okay, well, I don't know who said that. I need to see that because there's a couple things that need to be put into consideration.
Give me your email address. I'll send you the email that came.
Okay. Yeah, it's a toxin19@gmail.com, and that's A is in apple, U is in under, C is in Charlie. Pardon me. A is in apple, U is in under, T is in Tom, O is in octopus, C is in Charlie, H is in Harry, T is in Tom, H is in Harry, O is in octopus, N is in Nancy, the number 19@gmail.com. So let's get back to this question now. Now, first things first. What I did back in 2009 was I voided out the papal bull of 1492 because that was the bull that was used for them to claim the land and say anybody who is there, we will convert them into a Christian. I voided that out. This is the next gripe that I have with all these so-called Moors because they're not even using the letter and the communication that I sent to Pope Benedict XVI and told him, you work for me. So this is what it is. And I put that's been out on the internet for what, 4 years? 2008. So it's been out for 6 years. They haven't said anything. Then, because you know that the United States of America is a religious corporation underneath a corporation soul, which means that the business just keeps going vertical. And it just gets passed on to the next person who's in charge. The Queen, or Elizabeth II, because she's not really queen, she's a fraud, and she broke her contract. Elizabeth II, in Buckingham Palace, Windsor, and wherever the palace she's hiding out at, she broke that contract, but she's the manager of the funds that are generated by the United States of America Religious Corporation. The owner is the Vatican. The one who calls the shots is the Black Pope. That is Adolfo Nicholas, and I emailed him. Put it on Facebook. They have stayed silent. That's why you're seeing all these UFOs in Texas. You're seeing UFOs in Toronto. You're seeing UFOs all over the planet because we appealed to the Intergalactic Confederation and said, look, we don't want them here. And the Intergalactic Confederation can get rid of these negative entities, but they cannot do it if you all do not say anything, because therefore it comes back to commerce and contract. If you stay silent, you're in agreement with it. So when I sent that communication to Pope Francis in 2009, I faxed it to him and recorded it as me faxing him at the same time. That video has still been up. None of these legal eagles out here have said anything because Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, Queen's agents, Congressional Black Caucus agents, all of those people that I've mentioned, they belong to the Vatican. So you're fighting a big-time, very pervasive plantation with multiple players. So you have to know who all the players are and where their allegiance is. And the church pastors, they're the worst because, like I said before, they have the white Jesus in the black churches. Meanwhile, the Pope is bowing to a black church, bowing to a black Madonna and baby Jesus. So the people who are marching in Ferguson is another idea for them. They should print that picture off, because I have it up on my page. You can find it anywhere. They should print that up off their picture, print that picture, and if they're going marching, hands up, don't shoot, because the Pope worships the black Madonna and baby Jesus. So you're reminding them, and this is why I say I'm going to give a lot of solutions and legal tips that you all can use for the people getting arrested down there, and they can jack that whole court system up. So as far as the Pope saying that you got 2 years to file, no. At the end of 2015, that is when the second decade of indigenous peoples is over from the United Nations. Now, what has been talked about is that the indigenous people, we have said that we might not, 2 decades may not have been enough. We might need another decade. If we do get another 10 years, then that's fantastic. If not, then people are going to have to do their statutory declarations at the very minimum, which is a declaration stating that you are not chattel property, that you are indigenous, You are claiming your indigenous standing. Status is for corporations. Status is for slaves. You are indigenous. You are Melanonite. Once you know which tribe you're in, you don't have to know the customs. You don't have to know the traditions because you are a victim of what? Genocide, apartheid, trafficking in human cargo, and slavery. And those are international crimes. So the Pope doesn't have any say into that. That's paper. That's for one-dimensional object. You're not a one-dimensional object. You're three-dimensional. Now the next thing, sister, is this. The Pope had issued what's called a motu propria, which means that he basically took away immunity from all judges, all attorneys, all barristers, all lawyers, all police officers. They have no immunity. So if they violate any human rights or international law, they can be prosecuted. That's why you see Jesse and them have to run out, because this is no longer a domestic matter. It's international. And I'm talking specifically for the people that are Melanonites down in Ferguson. I know there are Amorites walking with them because the Amorites know their own. They already see that, look, if you start rolling on these Negroes, nothing's stopping you from shooting us dead in the middle of the street either, even though they're white, quote unquote.
Right.
So they're like, we got to step. We have to get involved in this because these police are out of there. So that tells you there is a disagreeable spiritual element, not only in Ferguson, it's happening in New York after Eric Garner, in Chicago, it's happening all over the place.
Right.
Right? And when this subject comes up, all businesses that exist were created under what's called the Roman Curia. So that means every business essentially is operating underneath the Vatican, because the Vatican is also a bank. So my challenge, it wasn't a challenge, I just stated the fact. I said, I am a deity. I wrote to Pope Francis, probably Benedict, then I wrote Francis. Both of them have stayed silent. So therefore they're in agreement because they're doing commerce. So therefore the lien that I filed on the Vatican and the Pentagon, and this is an active lien, they know who I am. And I'm like, look, you guys can't stay here. And the biggest thing, a lot of skeptics like to say, well, what are you going to do? You ain't got no military. I said, I got the elements. I don't need military. I got my ancestors. I don't need military. That crack in Mexico that just came out of no place, those sinkholes that have been showing up in Florida and whatnot, this is the type of power we're talking about. That's why when the movie Lucy came out, again, it's a sign and a message they're sending to us. That's why I did the invocation, because the one we did last week, they blocked that. They cut me off halfway during it because they have what's called a crystal decoder. So even though I speak in our language, those entities, and I'm not talking about Barack or any of these, the Illuminati or the Rothschilds, I'm talking beings above them. They know what I'm saying. So they cut that, and then we just continued the conference call, and that was it. And what was I doing? Mind linking. So don't worry if you can't get to Ferguson. Put your thoughts and your energies there that you want that situation resolved. This is where our power is in mind linking.
Okay.
So the Pope doesn't have any say, not even Jorge Bergoglio, right, who's known as Pope Francis I. He doesn't have any say in any of this.
Mm. Okay.
This is what we have been telling people. We have been telling people this the whole time. And I'm talking about the ones who are in the so-called conscious community. If you guys say you conscious and you all that, then write the Pope and tell the old fart, look, bug off.
Mm-hmm.
They ain't gonna do that. So therefore, they're playing around with our heritage. I don't play around with that. I wrote Pope. I wrote Elizabeth. She was smarter than those two old goats, because I know they're female.
Mm-hmm.
She had more intelligence than them. She stayed silent. Silent in commerce is tacit consent and agreement.
Mm-hmm.
What Pope Francis did, what he did wrong was he turned around and refused my letter and sent it back. That's a commercial dishonor, and I called him out for that. Then he went and he was at a ceremony, and protocol is when he goes for confession, he's not to do it in front of anybody. He's supposed to do it privately, but he did it with the cameras on him.
Oh, my. Okay. And speaking of the Pope and Christianity, I just have to share this, something that, hello?
I'm watching a video on Facebook. They are showing Ferguson is under fire.
Oh.
Yes.
They are shooting at people right now.
The reason, and part of the reason for that is that the demonstrators who came out for Wilson, they came armed. They came with weapons.
We know this. We know this.
Oh, okay.
We know this, and like this is why I did the invocation before we started this address. So if they're shooting the protesters right now as we're talking and doing this, it tells you two words: white supremacy. They're not showing any patience, and don't forget, police are putting in provocateurs into the protesters because they caught one guy the other night. They said, "Where are you from?" They said, "You ain't from Ferguson." And there's an Amorite, and he threw bricks at the police, and the protesters caught him throwing bricks and kicked him out. And they said, "Who you working for?" And he didn't say, "No, I'm not FBI," and then he took off.
And I think, I don't know if that's something that was trying to show some of the, our young brothers how to, I don't know how to make some kind of weapons or whatever. He was,
Yes. So let me. I just want to still finish up with the sister's question on the Pope. So what this means is you have to claim your indigenous standing. You send it to the governor, the president. You send it because this is in accord with international law. See, this is why Jesse Jackson and them they are plantation overseers. They ain't talking international law. He can't go there because that's what his orders are. His orders are you keep this domestic. You don't set foot and go into the international arena because then that means the end of everything. It doesn't mean the end of the world. It means the end of their world as they know it and the luxuries that they're getting for it. So this is what I'm saying, sister. So I've already done that. And so what has to happen now is those who are claiming their indigenous standing, don't worry about the Pope. The issue is you have to claim your standing and you have to start saying this, calling the system out for what it is. It is a corporation. It is slavery. You are a victim of genocide, apartheid, rape, trafficking in human cargo, and forced assimilation because they're forcing you to assimilate into their fictitious culture. And then they have these Negroes that look like you but are getting paid to keep you in the box.
okay.
So this is why, with that, when you go to court, the way they're doing things in court, you can't. It's not what people think it is. It's a banking issue. So if what I want to do, if the sister will allow me, who had asked me the question, I will provide some remedies on things that people can use in court down in Ferguson for those that have gotten arrested, those who have gotten arrested and got released and got to go back to court. Is that fine with the sister?
Is that for all of us or for those?
That's for everybody. This applies to everybody. But I'm targeting, because of Ferguson, this is for Ferguson, but everybody can use this. This is not limited to just Ferguson.
Yes.
Well, I would like to add to the question, just so I can get some clarity.
Yes.
How do you separate indigenous from Native American?
Okay. Yes, I remember. I remember. Okay, great. I appreciate you reminding me. Now, indigenous, right? Indigent is the singular. Indigenous is the plural. So it would be indigent. That is a person that is part of a particular area or inhabitant of a particular area. Native American is the term that they use for the original peoples here. There really is no separation. But the thing is, Hollywood is responsible for giving people the impression that a Native American has got black, straight hair and red skin. Whereas there's a book that we got the links up on Facebook. You might have to email me and I could send you the actual PDF. It's called I Am America. And it's a big, old book. It's back in, I don't know, 1700s or whatever. And it's thick, and it's got pictures. It shows New Amsterdam, and it shows, which would be New York, and they called it New Amsterdam at the time. And they showed what the original people of New Amsterdam looked like. Dark skin, short, thick, curly hair, wearing feathers. The men were wearing either loincloth, and the women were half naked, wearing skirts or loin coverings, but the women were topless. Now this is over here.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, I have what's called an autochthonous treatise. I can send that to you because that has more pictures. And there is really no separation, brother, between indigenous and Native American. It is the same. But the thing is, you have to impress upon them that what Hollywood is putting out as the original indigenous of this hemisphere. It is not true, because even Dr. David, PhD David Hotep, put out a book. The first Americans were Africans. So if you get his book, that is prima facie evidence that is good on its face. That would even fall in line with the Federal Rules of Evidence, Rule 13b. That book can be tendered as evidence. So when they say, okay, sir, are you John Smith in the court? You say, no, I'm not. That is a corporation. And then you would have to spell your name out properly, capital J, lower O, H, N. Then when they say, do you have a plea? I do not have a plea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I'm going to enter a plea of not guilty for you. That's what the judge will do. You say, on the record, for the record, let the record show you have just committed, you have just practiced law from the bench. That's illegal. You can't do that, and you cannot enter a plea for me.
Okay, so what you're saying is I have to claim my status first when I go to court.
I didn't say status. I keep telling you all standing. Status is for corporations. I will say this again because people are not listening. Standing is what you are claiming. You're not reclaiming it. You are claiming it because you are entitled to that under the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples.
UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous.
No, I didn't say the human. The United Nations.
No. United Nations Declaration of Rights.
No, on the rights of indigenous peoples. Yes, I have it here. I'm going to read some of that to you. But brother, continue. Okay, so you were starting there. What else was it that you were going to say?
You said the first thing you want to do is claim your standing. I had a court situation, and was arrested and released. And the first thing I just want to properly present myself when I go to court. And I know that, there's some differences, like you just explained about the Native American and the indigenous. One, like they coincide, but they're kind of different. So the number one thing is going to court. I want to be able to claim my standing. And you said something about lowercase and uppercase.
Yes. The name, keep some things in mind. And this is kind of a crash course. It's a more involved process. This is just a short-term solution to keep these guys on their toes. When they ask, are you such and such, you say no. And you say, I am the authorized representative, and then you spell your name out, because the name on the instrument is in all capital letters.
Right.
If you say, if they say, are you John Smith, and you say yes, you're saying you're the fiction. Once you admit to that, you automatically fall under their jurisdiction as their chattel property. And in admiralty, in admiralty law, you are guilty first and have to be proven innocent. So you've already confessed to being guilty. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, somewhat. So in other words, a remedy that would provide a remedy for myself to come in. The first when they first state my name, or they ask me, are you so and so and such? Instead of saying yes, I would say no to that.
You'd say no. You say, I am the authorized representative of that corporation, and my name is, and you spell your name out properly.
Mm-hmm. And you spell it out in all caps, or you would spell it out regularly?
No, you spell it out regularly. He, meaning the judge, has got the all caps version, and he's asking you, are you dead or alive? And when you say, yes, sir, I'm dead, good, we got another one.
Okay, because I noticed on the paperwork, on the documentation for the subpoena to go to court, my name is spelled out in all caps.
Yes, that's a corporation.
That donates as a corporation then.
Correct. Are you a corporation?
No, not at all.
Okay, so now when the judge says, okay, sir, step forward, are you so-and-so? You don't say, yes, Your Honor. When you say, yes, Your Honor, you're giving them jurisdiction. You say, no, you say, my honor. You do not say your honor because they're committing treason just by sitting up there. And so one of the things is, and then they say, do you understand?
Going to respect this?
Pardon?
Do they know about this? Do the courts know about what you're explaining?
Of course they know about what I'm saying. They listen. They know. I've helped a brother in Millersville down in Georgia. He had a traffic thing. He used to be in the military. The point of the matter here is, when you go up in there, this is not only for Ferguson, for the listeners, right? And this applies worldwide. It isn't just restricted to North America because they're all doing commerce. All the court cases, right? And that's why I'm focusing on Ferguson, especially because of what just happened. All the court cases in Ferguson, they are going to be sold on the stock market as a mutual fund. So the court case is the mutual fund, which is published by Fidelity, and Fidelity knows how many shares of, because it's like somebody is investing, like a court case, think of it like a business, and then you have people who are shareholders who are investing in that court case. And Fidelity knows how many shares are outstanding, how many have been issued, and how much they're worth. So for the people in Ferguson, for the ones who've been, let's say, arrested and got released and have to go back for an arraignment or hearing or what have you, they need to ask for the QSIB number. And that's spelled C is in Charlie, U is in under, S is in Sam, I is in international, P is in peppermint. And the QSIB number, you've got to ask them for it.
And that's before you go to court.
No, you can ask them that depending on the circumstance. Because some circumstances, if the person is already in custody, they can ask the public defender if they want to keep one. Say, I want to tell the prosecutor I want the QSIB number and the bid bond. If they're out on the street, they have to communicate with the court before they go in and establish contract. If they don't, then they have to do it on the record.
Can I ask a question, Chief?
Yes. Well, I'm not. Hold on a second. I'm not finished with this, please. So that's the QSIB number in the bid bond. So the next thing is, when they come in, you don't stand. You sit. And if they try to tell you you got to stand, you tell them, show me the law says I have to stand for a judge that's violating my rights. Because it's not in the federal rules of civil procedure. It's not state rules of civil procedure. That person coming out wearing a black gown is an actor. So if they're telling you to stand, you say, well, show me the law says I have to stand. I'll hold you in contempt of court. I'm not an officer of the court. You can only hold officers of the court in contempt. I'm not an officer of this court. I have no contract with this court. I'm an authorized representative of the person on that charging instrument. So you ask, you want the QSIB number and the bid bond. And they say, well, what? And if they ask, well, why do you want this? You say, well, you're going to sell this on the stock market. The default judgment, which the prosecutor is trying to get and is pushing this issue, is worth anywhere from $2 to $40 million. And so then if you end up sitting in jail for 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, when you get out, that security is still on the stock market being bought and sold and traded. You're not getting any principal or interest from it. So that is trafficking in human cargo. That's slavery. So if you don't bring these things up and you say, I know this is what's happening, I know the social security number of the person you think I am is the one that's paying for this case, so I want the QSIB number and the bid bond. I'll accept the charges for value, honor, and consideration with full reservation of all my indigenous rights. I return it to the clerk because the clerk is the real officer of any court clerk. The clerk is also what? The clerk is a banker. The clerk is the real judge of the court. The clerk is the banker. The clerk is the real judge. The judge is just the decoy. The clerk is the one, and the clerk is also a priest.
A priest as well?
Yes. Look up the word clerk in Black's Law, and it will tell you what the clerk is.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I'm so sorry, Chief. Sorry, go ahead.
So the thing is this. These are the techniques. So if people are going to protest, you can't just protest, get locked up, go to a public defender, get released, and get put on probation. No, you're not accomplishing it. It's about the fiat or the money, for the lack of a better word. So what you want to do, you want to start jacking the court system up. And when they say, sir, do you understand the charges? Or ma'am, do you understand? You say, no, I do not understand the charges. Well, what is it you don't understand about the charges? I don't understand because you have a yellow fringe around the 50-star flag and you have a yellow fringe around the flag of Missouri. So is this a constitutional court or an admiralty court? I need to know what jurisdiction you're operating under. I know you are a Puerto Rican judge under Title 48, United States Code Section 874. I know your birth certificate used to be titled in Puerto Rico. Now I know that the United States, Canada, and Mexico corporations have been exported to the middle of the Atlantic Ocean as confirmed by Representative Kanjorski. So therefore, who are you and how are you operating on indigenous land without permission from the plenipotentiary of Atlant, Utla, Turtle Island, Land of the Frogs, Lulon, Egypt of the West, Chief Nanya-Shaabu Ale? Have you spoken with him? Do you have a contract with him? When you say stuff like this, and this is why I'm saying it slow enough so people can record it, you can write it down and carry it and read it in court. When you bring that up, it's like what I said. Not only do I have a lien on them, I also have a lien on Corrections Corporation of America. They're the ones who operate the entire U.S. prison system. Are you all getting this?
Wow.
I already have the lien on them. This is why I have to. Pardon?
Well, I was just going to mention, just for the listeners, I mean, that's a lot to remember. But for those who are listening, is there some way we could download some of this information? Or
when this gets put up on the internet, I already gave up my email. We usually put the email in the comment section. They can contact me via toxin19@gmail.com, which I already gave out. And they can also call 587-712-0639.
Okay, what's that number again?
587-712-0639.
Okay.
So these are the techniques. Some of the techniques here. So now, is that you, Dakota? Wanting to get your question in?
That's Humble.
Humble? Okay, Humble. I want to hear you, Humble. Okay, Humble, how you doing? Raahuaat.
Yes. Raahuaat, I'm good. How you, beloved?
Anu PD Kanusi. I am that I am.
Clara here, Humble.
Yes, sir. Hey, baby.
Okay.
I want to ask, can they also use making a special appearance under duress, coercion, and threat? Can they say that as well?
Well, they could say that, but the problem here is this. This is where you're on contract with them, right? And this is why you could say that this proceeding is being done under threat, duress, and coercion, or if you're being forced to do something you don't want to do. If they say stand and you feel that you don't want to challenge, okay, I stand under threat on the record, for the record, let the record show I stand under threat, duress, and coercion, and the judge is threatening me. Bam. Because the point of the matter here is they are deemed to know the law. So if you say, okay, show me the law that says I have to stand for you, there isn't one. That's why Judge Joe Brown, when he got arrested, he asked the so-called administrator, because that's what they really are. They're not judges. There haven't been since 1789, and there are no courts since 1789. He asked the guy, can you cite the law? He said, I looked it up before I came down. Can you cite me the law? He said, I don't see your name listed as any judge in the circuit. You have to be recognized by a court of chancery, and you have to be recognized by this circuit court judges, and I don't recall your name being put on the list. So in other words, somebody said, here, we need a judge here. You go throw this robe on, go up there. Ain't nobody going to know. Nobody's going to check. And for those that have been released, or for those that are helping those that are been kidnapped, you go down to the clerk's office or for the county where the court is, and you find out, do they have an oath of office on file? They have to have an oath of office on file. They're supposed to be filing those in the court cases, and they're not doing it because if they file them, it show that they're committing treason. Penalty for treason is death. These judges know this. So then, from Missouri and any other state, you go to the Secretary of State for that state, and you say, does the judge have a dedimus potestatum signed by the governor? If they don't have a dedimus potestatum, which is an acknowledgement that this person is a judge authorized by the state code to sit in legal proceedings, then that person is committing fraud, treason, and impersonation of a public official. That means they're putting people in jail and don't have authority. So you go to the Secretary of State for that state and ask for the dedimus potestatum in the county or where the court is at. You go to the clerk's office and say, I need it. Where can I get a copy of this judge's oath of office? And if they don't have an oath of office, they'll give you a letterhead stating that they don't have an oath of office for a bond, which is an insurance policy on file. Because if they don't have an insurance policy on file, then that means they're basically throwing people, they're impersonating a public official. That's genocide, apartheid, rape, forced assimilation. So that's what the people down in Ferguson, now that they've been getting shot, that's what they should be telling CNN and all the independent news down there. This is genocide, apartheid, rape, and forced assimilation. Eric Holder is part of the plantation system. Barack Obama is part of the plantation system. So they're not going to do anything for you all. They just want you all to keep quiet and keep it moving so they can keep the slavery machine going. That's it. They're not going to do nothing. Jesse Jackson got chased out, and we know why this is happening because of the weekly addresses that we have been doing. People are listening. The churches, they're already in compliance and in cahoots, so forget your reverend, your pastor, your deacon. All of them are in it. Some of them are pedophiles. Some of them are trafficking in human cargo. I'm talking about the priests and the pastors. I don't care if they're male or female. Once they're black and they got a white Jesus up in there, they were with white supremacy. So they sold their own out for money. End of story. There's nothing to debate about. And it's interesting how now they're flipping on Malik Shabazz and blaming him for inciting the problem. I said, but it doesn't make a difference. You have two sets of players that are supporting the supremacy system, fighting against each other. And what's interesting is that they are all in bed together, indirectly. Because Malik Shabazz is the same thing. Malik Shabazz is not going to tell you all, if he's a lawyer, he has to have an oath to who? Elizabeth. He takes orders from who? The queen, fraud queen of England, Elizabeth II, or any of her representatives. So he's a British agent. Is everybody getting this?
I am. I'm
so
jotting down a little note.
So this means that all these guys, if they are a lawyer, the first question you ask that lawyer, do you have an oath to uphold my rights? If they pull out their bar card, you state, that is not what I asked you. Your bar card is evidence you are part of the British accredited registry. Do you have an oath to uphold my rights? And if you do, show me the law that says you have an oath to uphold my rights. They do not. They have an oath to uphold the bar, which is the British accredited registry. If you go on Google and Google the 1947 bar treaty, and it will show you that all these ones, I don't care who they are, Judge Matheson, Judge Judge Joe Brown, it doesn't make a difference. All of them are part of the same slavery system. They can only go so far.
The 1947 bar
Treaty, B-A-R treaty. And if you Google it into email, the website is barefootsworld.com. And that's where the information is there. And it brings up the fact, because Congress is not bound by the Constitution. So here is more black on black crime. The Congressional Black Caucus knows that Congress is not bound by the Constitution since May 11th, 1955. I just want to correct that for young Merchant Elbay's video. They're not bound by it. They have to promote what? Human rights in the 5 fields of endeavor: economic, social, cultural, civil, and political. So if you don't have, if you are fighting cases domestically and don't bring up human rights, then you can get abused. Does everyone comprehend what I just said?
Right.
If they're not using the Constitution, then what are they using?
In court, they are using the Uniform Commercial Code. They are using commercial law. They are using Admiralty Maritime law. That's why where the so-called judge sits, he's acting as the captain on the ship. With the flags in the courtroom or at the front of the bench with yellow fringes around it, it means that the Constitution in the room is suspended. You can go on Google, and there is in Bergen County, New Jersey, that's Bergen, New Jersey, the state judge in a case there, it's on video, voided out the Constitution because the Supreme Court said that the federal judges can void the Constitution. Therefore, the civil rights claim that Trump is filing on behalf of the Brown family, that is going to go nowhere. That will go as far as he can make money, when it'll probably get rid of certiorari and then get kicked out. And there won't be an explanation by the Supreme Court. And they won't even make reference to the fact that the Constitution, if you type in Google, Constitution void in court, you will see the case that came out in January 18th of 2011 out of a court case, 2 court cases in Atlanta, Georgia, corporately. And there, the Constitution, it was deemed that the federal judges can void the Constitution in court. Of course they can, because all the courts are what? Admiralty Maritime. All of them. State, family, everything. That's the law of sea has been brought on the land. And on sea, you are considered guilty first and have to prove you're innocent. When you're on the land, you are innocent first and have to be proven guilty. This is why when these guys say you got to change your status, they're talking about a corporation. And I say you got to say standing, because standing means you're on the land. Status is corporate, which goes into also admiralty and commercial. Does everybody comprehend what I just said?
Yes.
So the Constitution is voided, and they're using UCC. Is UCC still an extension of the Constitution, or is that a law outside of the Constitution?
No, the UCC is not an extension of the Constitution, because the UCC falls into the 1966 Tax Act. And we have this on our webpage. He will have it on his links and on my page, and we'll just email us. We'll share it with you. Anyone can send me a friend request on Facebook. It's at Nanya-Shaabu, and that's E-I-L, and you'll see. Pardon? Yeah, Nanya-Shaabu, Nanya-Yael. That's my appellation. And send me a friend request. And then once you send me the friend request, send a message saying that we want the evidence, because it's the 1966 Tax Act, and we have the actual quote. Like Nanya-Shaabu had the actual quote, and I had some other quote. I followed up and went and got some other quotes pertaining to the monetary system. So this is all slavery again. There's nothing's changed.
Right, right.
So the point of the matter here is, when you say status, you're talking about admiralty, commercial, maritime. That means you're on the sea. When you say standing, you're talking about being on the land. On the land, you're innocent and have to be proven guilty. On the maritime, you're guilty first, have to be proven innocent. They're not going to tell you this. Trump is not going to tell the Brown family this. Malik Shabazz is not going to tell any of the people who come up to the rallies this.
Is Trump aware of this?
He is an agent of England. He knows this. They all know this.
Okay.
Why do you think they tapped my phone? Why do you think they cut? Because I'm telling you all the information that the rest of these guys, Farrakhan, ain't talking about this. Because one of his sons is a police chief.
Right. I know.
So these guys are sitting there. The line, as I said, maybe 3 addresses ago, is drawn in the sand. You're on one side or the other. Either you're about freedom or you're about slavery. End of story. There's no middle ground no more. There's no fence for people to sit on anymore. It's gone. And the fact that a whole bunch of you all from Florida, Indiana, from Detroit. Everybody's calling because our weekly addresses are hitting. This is the information that they need to be telling people. So now Sharpton has to come out and make a statement. Yeah, we want this to end. I said, okay, then why don't they tell the police to stop having quotas? Why don't they tell the police who are on the police force, I'm talking about the black ones, they have to be a Mason, and if they have to uphold that, that means they're holding up a Masonic oath over the law. That's a conflict of interest. That's treason now, because now they're holding up Blue Lodge or the Shrine or the Royal Order of Jesters over the law. So that means there is no law. That's code. Law, you cannot plea bargain. Code and rules and regulations and statutes you can bargain. But law, you cannot. So either you breathe or you don't. Either you eat or you die. That's law. These guys plea bargain ways out of stuff. So now, the same thing still applies. So the QSIP number, you ask for the QSIP number, the bid bond. You said, yes, I need to know, is this a constitutional court or admiralty court? See, they're not telling the public this. That's why Alan West, I love, you can get the video, and Alan West told it was so beautiful. Judge Napolitano sat there on Fox when he had his show, and Alan West, this is for all the people in Florida, misnomer, corporate Florida, he went on Fox, and Alan West said that the president is a CEO. If the president is a CEO and he said that, that means that this is a corporation. This is like Wendy's, Harvey's, Burger King, Walmart. And he's saying the president is a CEO. That means there is no law. And Alan West just admitted to that. That means he committed treason. Then these guys have the audacity to go to church talking about God. What do you mean you're going to church talking about God for? It says that no man can serve two masters. You cannot serve God and mammon. So which is it?
Right. Right.
This is for the Bible thumpers. That's the main reason. This is the main reason why I brought that up. So now the next thing I want to get into, and continuing with this, is the UN Declaration. I'm going to bring up, these are the points that not only for Ferguson, but for other people listening, this is what you're going to have to do. This is what you're going to have to read. Hold on 1 second here.
All right.
Listen, wouldn't you know, I'm trying to find, I just had the declaration. I got 3 copies of it, but I have one in particular that I wanted to get into because I had the main points. This is what the people in Ferguson need to start doing. They need to get their hands a copy of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. They have to stop calling themselves black. That's why Sharpton will not stop saying that, because that means no more work for him. That's why Jesse Jackson won't.
Of indigenous people.
UN Declaration on the Rights, the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples.
Okay.
So you can go Google that, and it will show up on Gmail, and you can download the PDF. So you won't have a problem. There will be no problem for you all to get that.
Okay.
And it'll be in a PDF, and you can download it, read it, and learn it, carry it with you. Same thing with the citations that you get off the website and what we provided on here on this address. You have to write them out, get yourself a binder or an attaché, and read them. And carry them with you. You have to carry them with you. That's what the New Black Panther Party is joking. They ain't got no law books in their hand. What are they talking about? They marching and ain't got no law books. Right? And I'm going to give you one, before I start on this, I'm going to let you guys know one other thing. And I'll use Georgia as an example because I know the code and I know all the states have interstate contracts. And it's similar in one state and the next state is similar. Now in Georgia, this is called the Official Code of Georgia annotated, or the Official Code of Georgia annotated. 15, that's 15-16-4.1.
15-16-4.1?
Correct. So if you're in Florida or Missouri or Illinois, there should be a similar statute that you should be able to find it. Now this deals with violations of oath of office. And it states that it is a violation, it's a violation of a sheriff's oath of office to engage directly or indirectly in a private security, bail bonding, or record-towing service in the county in which the sheriff has jurisdiction. So do you all know what that means? Sheriffs are not supposed to be taking people's money for property. That's piracy. That's Title 18, United States Code Section 7. People are not supposed to happen to give up their property to post a property bond. They're not supposed to be giving the sheriff. The sheriff is not supposed to be taking no money. Why? Because sheriffs have two oaths of office. One, the first oath they take is to the insurance company. The second is to the Constitution. That is treason, that is a conflict of interest, and it is fraud. So when you look at pardon? Of Georgia. And that's OC of Georgia. So that's OCGA 15-16-4.1. You will have to go into the state code for that particular state and try and find oaths of office or public officials, and you'll have to look for it. But that's in Georgia. So if it's applicable in Georgia, they have a similar one for New York, they have a similar one for Florida, Missouri, all of that. These sheriffs are not supposed to be dealing directly or indirectly with private security. Mortgages, they can't evict nobody. Why? All the court cases are being sold on the stock market through Fidelity as a mutual fund. That's a conflict of interest. So when the brother asked me about indigenous and Native American, now you see that this is what a commercial issue that's going on. This is banking that's happening in court. This has nothing to do with compensation. That's why they don't care about that. Once you say you're indigenous and you bring it up on the record. So that means none of these sheriffs in any 50 states are supposed to be dealing in any bail bonding. They're not supposed to be taking bonds. They're not supposed to be managing no jail because it's a violation of the oath of office. But if you all don't say anything in Admiralty Maritime law, you are consenting and you agree to it. Just getting you guys a heads up. So now I'm going to read from the UN Declaration. I'm just bringing up some certain points. Now this was Article 8. Now this is why, again, these guys are not talking about it. Article 8 of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. In Section 1, indigenous peoples and individuals have the right not to be subjected to forced assimilation or destruction of their culture. In Section 2, states shall provide effective mechanisms for prevention of and redress for, any form of forced assimilation or integration. E, any form of propaganda designed to promote and incite racial or ethnic discrimination directed against them. What is white supremacy? Isn't white supremacy racial and ethnic discrimination?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was Article 8. Article 10, indigenous peoples shall not be removed from their lands or territories. No relocation shall take place without the free, prior, and informed consent of the indigenous peoples concerned and after the agreement on just and fair compensation and, where possible, with the option of return. So for our ancestors that were put on the Trail of Tears, they never got compensated for their land. That's going from Florida, Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, North Carolina, all that. Article 12, indigenous peoples have the right to manifest, practice, develop, and teach their spiritual and religious traditions, customs, and ceremonies. The right to maintain, protect, and have access in privacy to their religious and cultural sites, the right to the use and control of their ceremonial objects, and the right to the repatriation of their human remains. That's number 12. Now I'm going to go to Article 14. Indigenous peoples have the right to establish and control their educational systems. This is Section 1, and institutions providing education in their own languages in a manner appropriate to their cultural methods of teaching and learning. Okay, and the next one we're going to, Indigenous peoples, this is Article 20, have the right to maintain and develop their political, economic, and social systems or institutions, to be secure in the enjoyment of their own means of subsistence and development, and to engage freely in all their traditional and other economic activities. This is Article 20, number 1. Now in Section 2, Indigenous peoples deprived of their means of subsistence and development are entitled to just and fair redress. Okay, the article, let's see. Okay, Article 26. Indigenous peoples have the right to the lands, territories, and resources which they have traditionally owned, occupied, or otherwise used or acquired. Article 28, Indigenous peoples have the right to redress by means that can include restitution, or when this is not possible, just, fair, and equitable compensation for the lands, territories, and resources which they have traditionally owned or otherwise occupied or used, and which have been confiscated, taken, occupied, used, or damaged without their free, prior, and informed consent. That's Section 1 of Article 28. This opens up claims, but you cannot get any claims if you don't claim you're indigenous. So this thing about trying to get reparations for slavery, it's not going to happen. I'm telling you that right now. Let's see. Now, Article 29. States shall take effective measures to ensure that no storage or disposal of hazardous materials shall take place in the lands or territories of indigenous peoples without their free, prior, and informed consent. Article 31, Section 1. Indigenous peoples have the right to maintain, control, protect, and develop their cultural heritage, traditional knowledge, and traditional cultural expressions, as well as the manifestations of their sciences, technologies, and cultures, including human and genetic resources, seeds. Oh, hold on. I think I got kicked off. Oh, I got kicked off of the address. Hold on. Oh, wow.
I hear you.
I just looked down at the phone. I got kicked off. Hold on. These guys are deep. They did not like that. Okay. All right. Okay. So, Son, here we're back. Yeah, I forgot to patch y'all in. So we're back at Article 17. Article 17, number 1, indigenous individuals and peoples have the right to enjoy fully all rights established under applicable international and domestic labor law. Article 20, indigenous peoples have the right to maintain and develop their political, economic, social, and systems or institutions to be secure in the enjoyment of their own means of subsistence and development, and to engage freely in all their traditional and other economic activities. Number 2, indigenous peoples deprived of their means of subsistence and development are entitled to just and fair redress. Article 23, indigenous peoples have the right to determine and develop priorities and strategies for exercising their right to development. In particular, indigenous peoples have the right to be actively involved in developing and determining health, housing, and other economic and social programs affecting them, and as far as possible to administer such programs through their own institutions. Article 26, indigenous peoples have the right to the lands, territories, and resources which they have traditionally owned, occupied, or otherwise used or acquired. That's Article 26.1. Article 28.1, indigenous peoples have the right to redress by means that can include restitution, or when this is not possible, just, fair, and equitable compensation for the lands, territories, and resources which they have traditionally owned or otherwise occupied or used, and which have been confiscated, taken, occupied, used, or damaged without their free, prior, and informed consent. Okay, Article 31. Indigenous peoples have the right to maintain, control, protect, and develop their cultural heritage, traditional knowledge, and traditional cultural expressions, as well as the manifestations of their sciences, technologies, and cultures, including human and genetic resources, seeds, medicines, knowledge of the properties of fauna and flora, oral traditions, literatures, design, sports, and traditional games and visual and performing arts. They also have the right to maintain, control, protect, and develop their intellectual property over such cultural heritage, traditional knowledge, and traditional cultural expression. Article 36. Indigenous peoples, in particular those divided by international borders, have the right to maintain and develop contacts, relations, and cooperation, including activities for spiritual, cultural, political, economic, and social purposes with their own members as well as other peoples across borders. And Article 37, indigenous peoples have the right to the recognition, observance, and enforcement of treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements concluded with states or their successors, and to have states honor and respect such treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements. So, you all, those down in, not only in Ferguson, but that's where our focus is primarily, but this applies to all Melaninites. You gotta, the key word is you gotta say you're indigenous.
Right.
That's right.
Anything else, you can forget it.
Okay.
You have to claim your indigenous standing. Now, there's a way to do that properly. And before I continue, I just want to read real quick. This is the Hague Declaration. This was done by the White House. This was March 14th when they signed it. This is pertaining to the fighting going on in Russia and the Ukraine. Now, this is what the G7 signed off on. This is under Section 2. This is the Hague Declaration. This is off the White House website, Office of the Press Secretary, March 24, 2014. Number 2, international law prohibits the acquisition or part of all of another state's territory through coercion or force. To do so violates the principles upon which the international system is built. So that means the exportation of the U.S., Canada, and Mexico that I did is a commercially certified document by the U.S. Post Office, which is underneath the UPU, and the UPU controls Interpol. That means they have to give our land back. But you all ain't going to get anything if you're calling yourselves black and acting like Negroes. You have to claim your indigenous standing and know your heritage. And this is what the rest of these guys, these house Negroes, are coming out the woodwork because it's over for them. They're not going to live the fine life with the lobster and crab and all that stuff. Them days are over.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so with that, I have a question.
Yeah, can I interject something?
I said, does anyone have a question?
Oh, no. I'm sorry. No.
Nobody has a question?
I have a question.
Yes. And where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Smyrna. This is Nanya-Shaabu.
Hotep.
Hotep, peace to the God. Yo, being that you said they got to give the land back, it's an individual that actually has the deed and the actual treaty of descendant of McIntosh and all treaty signers that actually have deeds to the land as far as the Creek Nation Treaty of 1790 that George Washington signed, and the only treaty that has a proclamation on it. Being that what you just stated is plenipotentiary of the Turtle Island right now, he said that they got to give the land back. Being that we have that individual with the deed and being of the Creek Nation, wouldn't it be the right time that we can make this move, just like what you said, using what you have, exhibit or as exhibit, and using these deeds to actually enforce that right now?
But we never use deeds. This is the point. See, commercially right now, it's like this because this is Georgia was under a charter, as you know, and the issue that has to be dealt with and that people are ignoring is this: you claim your indigenous standing, okay, you want the land back, and so we got these deeds. But the thing is, they're out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, number one. So the venue is incorrect here. You have to appeal to international venue. First thing. Second thing, it has to be done properly. Most people don't even have their I's dotted, much less their T's crossed. Because when you have somebody like Tosh Tariq Bey saying, well, I think we should just accept the driver's license until we get ourselves together. I'm like, come on, man, please. This is not, you talking 1928, this is 2014 on the Gregorian calendar, and you're saying, well, we're going to accept this until we get ourselves together. If you can't get yourself together now, if you're going to use the driver's license, then you have to amend the document to note that it is a vessel. That's all it is. Nothing more, nothing less. It's not you. It has no connection to you, other than you're considered a trustee, except when they want money from you that you're a trustee. But the fact is you're really a beneficiary. So people have to have their ducks in a row. People want to just run out there and do stuff. And I'm like, look, you guys don't even have your ducks in a row. They've been calling themselves U.S. citizens and Americans for years. That's contract. Before they present anything, they have to do a statutory declaration. Once you do your statutory declaration, then it's like, okay, you're claiming that you're indigenous. Okay, fine. Did you send it off to the governor? Did you publish it? Did you send it to somebody? Because Sonny Perdue, who was the previous governor to, Neil, right? Is the governor for Georgia now. Sonny Perdue has authenticated his great seal on the lien that we have on Georgia that Condoleezza Rice signed off on. He has one. So they probably have that in their black book someplace. That, hey, we got a problem here. Because now I know that the property tax in Georgia is going up by 17%. Wow. In Fulton County. And I said, because our embassy is just outside of what they call Atlanta. It's just on the outside, and it's where our embassy is at. It's in unincorporated territory in Ellenwood. And so there were already liens filed on that before they fraudulently tried to sell it. So then I spoke with the county attorney, Christy Cross Barnes, and we said we want to do a title search, right, to find out how did this bill of sale, how did this get in this person's possession. Now they won't give us the title. So I was like, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. We already contacted Eric Holder at the Justice Department. He already knows about it. All the stuff happening in the U.S., I said, I don't have no time for these games. I'm going to our ancestors, and this is what's happening. The flooding going on in Detroit, they didn't have water. Now they got more water than they can shake a stick at. Flooding there, flooding in Florida, sinkholes in Florida, all sorts of stuff. I said, this is what we have to do. We are so focused on the fiat. Well, how do we get justice? Beat them drums and call on those ancestors. Give them some offerings. Give them some food. Oh, hold on, y'all. I got an unknown name and an unknown number. Let me see if we can get it.
Oh, okay.
Did you hear him say feed the ancestors?
Yeah. He said get them food and water. Offering and which is food.
Someone asked about
I just passed you in now because I was just in the middle of something, so you can listen if you like, and we can talk afterwards.
Okay, I'll have to call you back. I just want to touch base, but I'll listen in for a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I already passed you in. So,
okay.
Yeah, so where was I? Okay, so you all got to, where was I? What was I
Call on your ancestors, give them offerings.
Oh, yeah. Beat the drums. Beat those drums. Call the ancestors. Give them offerings. We can make it rain. We can make it sunny. We can do all this. We have the potential, but we have been taught to ignore that. And this is because people have asked me, well, what do you do when they commercially dishonor? I said, well, I follow the commercial process. When they dishonor, I go black magic.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Straight up, because they're doing it.
I don't pray for my enemies. I pray against them. That's right.
I don't play that stuff. I'm dealing with these ones up here because where I'm at is in Alberta, is called the seat of the Illuminati. So I'm right in the center of this. So I don't play. When they turn and say, well, what do you do? I said, I was in court and I did the violet flame right in court.
Mm-hmm.
Audible so they could hear it.
Right.
Because the thing is this. When we start looking at this, and this is why we got 13 callers on there. Hopefully I can see everybody's number and I won't get it anonymous. But if it is, that's fine. I know the Pentagon probably might be listening in too. They have a vested interest because they know Nibiru is on the other side of that sun. And so now they like, hey, I said, I'm telling my ancestors they've mistreated us here on Tiamat. I have no sympathy for them, and they don't care. So now when they realize their world is over, it's sinking into them slowly. They will start coming to you and apologizing, and you'll be like, why are they acting so nice to me all of a sudden? Because it's an outside force outside the planet. And that's why we had to appeal to the Intergalactic Confederation because of Fukushima and the radiation. And I have been counseled that, yes, they are fighting against it, but again, we have to say these things. There is a lien on the White House. U.S., Canada, Mexico corporations are in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. We have to say that. We have to say that there are no land titles. This I'm going back to what Temt-ta down in Smyrna was saying. There are no titles anymore. All the titles, the entire title is clouded. I'm the one that caused the $5 trillion electronic run on the bank. I'm the only one that went and filed a lien on the Vatican. And the rest of these Nuwabians and the rest of them call themselves deities, but they're still holding IDs calling themselves U.S. citizens.
Mm-hmm.
No, so stop fronting already. But again, this is not for everybody also.
Right.
This is for deities. This is not for the mortals. The mortals know who they are, and they know who the deities are. And when the deities start to awaken, the mortals try to pull them back in. No, y'all got to keep calm and Ferguson, keep the peace, and you got to be smart. I said, well, there's Black Crime by Eric Holder and Barack Obama because all of them is committing fraud. You have to say this. When you guys say this, you create the vibration and the frequency, and then the universe will say, okay, if there's fraud, we're going to correct this now.
Mm-hmm.
But the people, you all people listening on this call, as well as those who will be listening to it worldwide, you have to say this. The U.S., Canada, Mexico have been exported. You have to say that they are committing fraud in these courts. You have to say all these public officials are committing fraud. They know what the penalty for treason is. They don't mind putting you in jail because they know they're committing a fraud. And if you know, they go to jail. And then they would be like that female judge, I think she was in Nevada, got pulled over and then started crying to the cop. She was a judge. She pulled her card out, and then she started bawling her brains out because the cop was arresting her. And she said, come on, I just live 2 miles from here. If you arrest me, you're going to ruin my life. I worked 25 years to get to this point. But she knew what she was doing when she was drunk under the influence and behind the wheel. And I'm sure there's families that were in front of her that cried and bawled and everything, that she didn't care because she's getting paid for each case that she's sitting on.
Mm.
So we cannot be sympathetic. And I do realize there is another element involved. That's why the money represents the energy. Nellie came down, and I say he's listened to our weekly address. He came down to Ferguson. He's from St. Louis area. He knows if he don't go down there, no people in St. Louis are going to buy his albums.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to make this before I forget. I'm gonna apologize, to Denzel Washington because I found out he just got out of rehab. So I know when you go to rehab, you can't be put in a stressful situation. So I'm giving, an apology to Denzel. I didn't know he was in rehab, but, when you come out of rehab, you can't be put in a stressful situation. So he gets an exemption. But Oprah, no. Morris Chestnut, the rest of them, no. They don't get none. But Denzel, okay, I didn't know he was in rehab. So, I don't want you to relapse or nothing.
Right. Okay. Mm.
And so one other thing, here's another thing I want to give before I go to another question. I want to impress upon the people, period. Get yourself a copy of the Oath of Queen Elizabeth, because all these public officials are secretly her agents, and you get a copy of her oath. Yep, and you print it off. Yeah, Oath of Elizabeth II. That fraud queen is Elizabeth Battenberg. You get a copy of her oath. You can Google her oath and it'll come up and you print it off, you carry it with you. Like I said, all the codes that I have been giving, that's why you need HCR 194, S-Res 26. That's the apology to African Americans for slavery. They basically gave you guys an out with House Resolution 194, but you all don't know about it. And of course, Trump is not going to talk about it. Malik Shabazz is not going to bring it up. Sharpton won't bring it up, and Jesse Jackson won't bring it up. Because in the preamble of House Resolution 194, it says, we acknowledge we robbed them of their name and their heritage. So that right there is a contract that allows you to claim your name and heritage because they acknowledge.
Resolution 194, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, you might have to contact me. It should be on my notes page on Nanya-L on my Facebook. And if you have a problem finding it, email me because what they did is they swapped that one out in the search and put some other search, HCR 194, which pertains to churches.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Trying to keep people, underneath that religion.
Right.
So that's what House Resolution 194, S. Conrad 26, which is the Senate apology to African Americans for slavery. All the people who are protesting should be having copies of that with them to show that the Senate apologized for slavery, and that means you're supposed to be treating us fairly, which you're not. So therefore, they're following what? Rex 84, King Alfred Plan, and Secret Treaty of Verona. So that means all those public officials, the Congressional Black Caucus included, are all agents of the Queen and agents of the Vatican. So that's why you carry a Bible with you, not out of any religious, this has nothing to do with that. This is the contract that they say they swore. So you have to have a King James Version because it's under a letters patent in perpetuity, and you have Exodus chapter 23, verse 9, checked off. It said, thou shalt not oppress a stranger. So all these churches are supposed to be quoting Exodus chapter 23, verse 9. If people listen to, I think, Weekly Address 11, I go into the Mishnah because this is what they're using, and that's why I told you it's body parts. Why else would Zimmerman be showing up in St. Louis and getting arrested in St. Louis?
Right.
He should have kept his butt wherever he was. He got chased off a beach in Florida. They chased him, right? And then he turns around and he's ended up in Missouri. I said, what is he doing up in Missouri?
Exactly.
Yep, where's your son?
Well, they removed him because he was starting arguments with, some of our young people, young men.
Can you say that question again, please?
They say that he was arrested for becoming argumentative with some of our young men.
Who was arrested?
Some of our young brothers.
Who was arrested?
Zimmerman.
Oh, well, the thing. Well, that's no surprise there. That's not a surprise. But the thing is, for him, he wants a death wish. He can't deal with it. He might be free, but it's driving him crazy mentally.
Mm-hmm.
He does. He just, and nobody's touching him, and that's what's worse. The old saying is silence speaks loud.
Right.
So he got chased off a beach. In certain places he can't go, people will chase him. Other than that, ain't nobody messing with him. He's marked like Cain was in the Bible from in the land of Nod.
Mm-hmm.
He's marked spiritually. Zimmerman is marked.
Right.
So he wants to die. That's why he's doing that. He wants to die. He wants to bring some, because this is what misery loves company. He wants somebody to do something to get wrapped up with him, so this way he can feel good about himself, and nobody's going for it. It's not working.
The ancestors told me. Yep.
He's marked, so he ain't worried about him. That's okay, good. They won't put you in jail, but the Nubians in Florida and in Missouri and elsewhere, even in Los Angeles, same thing. You all got to get that Mishnah, and I provided the link. So for those that don't have it, you can email me at atoxin19@gmail.com. I can send you the link, and you can download the Mishnah and start at the fourth book, which is called the Nezikin, which deals with damages. And then it has references to the Old Testament in Exodus and in Deuteronomy, which I read about, I think, week 13 or week 11. And in there, it will show that. So this is the law that they're actually following. Because when you read the oral law of the Jews, it tells you it is not unlawful. It didn't say illegal. It said it's not unlawful for a Jew to kill a goyim, and a Jew shall not be put to death. This is what's going on. Crump may not know. He may know this, but they're not telling you all this.
Mm-hmm.
Malik Shabazz, he ain't telling you. And I know Farrakhan is listed to our weekly addresses. I know the Nuwabians, the Wunuwupians. I know they're all listed to my weekly addresses. And my point is this. You all call yourselves gods and descendants of gods. Where the gods at? Because right now I don't see but a handful. They're playing Monopoly with people's lives, and nobody's saying anything. I'm like, look, ask for the QSIP number in the bid bond. Ask the judge, do you have an oath of office on file? My honor. Do you work for the Queen? Are you an agent of the Vatican? When you start doing stuff like that, then they're going to realize we can't run this hustle on them no more. That's why them boys who rolled up on Jesse Jackson, and Jesse Jackson was rocked because he was like, okay, where are they getting all this energy from? Because I did that sacred fire to have 1,000 sons burned down in Ferguson. And to mind link with the people down there and give them answers, because they're going to do the same shuffle and jive stuff, and it ain't going to work.
Right.
So does anybody else have another question?
No.
Okay, so I guess with this, because we went extra long today, but this is what needs to be done. So people know how to get in contact with me. They know how to email me. Go on my notes on Facebook. They can go on Nanya-Shaabu's Facebook page. He's got a lot of our documents. Go on his website, which is called Phoenix Rose channel on YouTube.
Phoenix Road?
No, Phoenix Rose.
Phoenix?
No, Phoenix is spelled Feenix Rose. R-O-S-E.
Oh, F-E-N-I-X. Rose, like the flower?
Yes, on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
And most of our videos, because that's where the websites and whatnot go on, and you will see all the videos for those who may have been tuning in for the first time. So with that, so if nobody else, yes.
Yeah, almost sent me all of the previous weeks.
Okay, great.
So 1 through 15, I have that.
Okay, great. And so we want to send an acknowledgement out to Humble. We want to send an acknowledgement out to all the listeners worldwide, in Trinidad and Sweden, in France, in Kenya, in Africa. We want to send an acknowledgement to all of you all. And we just want people to keep coming in, and all the indigenous people who have issues in their countries, they have my number, they have my email, send it to me. We'll get that, make mention of it, so we can have the light shining and all eyes on all issues pertaining to indigenous people. So for all the callers on this call, I give gratitude and appreciation to the ancestors for you all being able to call. We're already mind linked, and so now you have to use what you apply and what you know now. Now is the time. Now is the time. Now is the time. And with that, I want to say Hotep, Sila Antuten, and Raahuaat.
Raahuaat.
Okay. You apply and what you know now. Now is the time. Now is the time. Now is the time. And with that, I want to say Hotep, Sila Antuten, and Raahuaat.
Raahuaat.
Okay.